So I'm Sandeep Giri, graduated from Coe 2004 in physics and computer science. Currently I'm at Google. I work for the machine learning team where we build machine learning infrastructure, sometimes known as supercomputers, or more fancy way known as AI hypercomputer. I can say that Coe helped launch the research arm of my career. I'm embarrassed to say when I came to Coe, I didn't know anything about research. By that I mean absolutely zero. And then the physics department was like, hey, why don't you join this semester and we'll get you into glass research. Got me into national labs. I worked at Fermi National Lab in high energy physics. A small portion of the Higgs boson, the God particle, I did a small piece of that project. This was the launching pad. They opened up their network to me. They taught me how to build experiments, how to do measurement, how to author papers, things that were all foreign and new to me. And by the time I graduated, I had like 5 research papers. And I'm very grateful and thankful that they did that. The science departments and the physics department and even computer science, they offer good research opportunities and internship opportunities, which sometimes rival, I would say, even elite schools. You would rather be a big fish in a small pond and the other way around. I published 5 papers, research papers, and went around conferences around the world talking about my research. It's something when I arrived at Stanford, I told my other friends there, and they were quite surprised to hear that this tiny college in Iowa has that on offer to students. I would have not had those opportunities had Coe not introduced the right folks to me or put me in the right path to think like that.